The Olympic Games has long been thought of as the pinnacle of athletic success for many athletes since the inception of the modern games over 100 years ago. However, in many fans' eyes, the past 4 or 5 Olympics have been an absolute failure, not due to the athletes, but in part by the flawed execution, economic challenges, and lack of fair sport from the host country and the International Olympic Committee. In addition, viewership for the Olympics has massively declined over the past 20 years, with 60% of Americans saying they tuned in for the 2000 Sydney Games, compared to only 35% of Americans saying that they watched this summer's Paris Olympics. With the persisting view that the Olympics aren't clean due to doping and the economic damage that many host cities face in the wake of the Olympics, the IOC is struggling to find potential suitors for future games. However, in 2023, Aron D'souza began talking about an alternative for athletes who are looking to push the human body and their sport, and created the Enhanced Games. The Enhanced Games were created with an emphasis on pushing the human body to its limits and testing those limits by taking any means necessary, including performance-enhancing drugs, to break world records for prize money and create a new alternative to the Olympics. While the Enhanced Games did garner its supporters, many Olympic and professional athletes shook their head at the notion that they would throw away their life's work of training just to go and take performance-enhancing drugs to break a world record. However, retired Australian Olympic swimmer and Olympic medalist James Magnussen saw this as his last opportunity to break the 50 freestyle world record, and with that, the Enhanced Games had its first athlete. But at what cost? In this video, we'll dive into everything you need to know about the Enhanced Games, hear from fellow Olympians like Adrian on what his thoughts are on the Enhanced Games, weigh the pros and cons so you can make the most informed decision about the Enhanced Games and your opinion on it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe so you can keep up to date with all things swimming, and without further ado, let's dive into the Enhanced Games. In 2023, Aron D'souza created the Enhanced Games with the goal of reclaiming the Olympic spirit and embracing an alternative space for athletes at the highest level to compete, without all the corruption of the IOC and WADA over the past decade. As an Australian lawyer and entrepreneur, D'Souza turned to his fellow statesman, Australian swimmer James Magnussen, to become his first athlete, and thus the Enhanced Games were born. While James is the only athlete who's publicly announced his training for the Games, the Enhanced Games says that there's a multitude of different athletes across various sports who are already training for the Games. Ahead of the 2024 Paris Olympics, Aron and his co-founder Christian Angermeyer appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast to make their intentions clear with the Games and make a public call for current and retired athletes to consider a new future of competition. This includes pushing the human body to its physical limits, creating a new platform for competition, inclusivity for transgender athletes, and revolutionizing sports by creating prize money incentives for breaking world records. But despite all the hype, there are still plenty of skeptics that say this could have a negative impact on the future of Olympic sports, most notably swimming. In 2022, at the Women's NCAA Swimming and Diving Championships, a swimmer named Leah Thomas on the University of Pennsylvania women's swim team became the topic of discussion as she became a transgender athlete who was competing in the female category. While many swimmers and fans were outraged by this taking place, Thomas had no other alternative outlets for competition. The categories were male or female, and she was told she didn't fit into either. With the rise of the Enhanced Games, this now offers an alternative avenue for transgender athletes like Thomas to come safely compete in the category of their choosing without any scrutiny of the testosterone, their lung capacity, or anything like that due to the nature of the Enhanced Games and the level playing field that it creates. While I don't see many young Olympic hopefuls turning away the opportunity to compete for their country in the Olympics, I do see this as a unique opportunity for athletes who are on the brink of retirement, or those Olympic athletes who are not the top 1% of athletes who are going to medal at the Games, to reinvent themselves and create a new alternative platform for sport. But first, in order for the Enhanced Game to be successful, they need to continue to find athletes across all Olympic sports. They need to pledge themselves and commit to themselves to training for the Enhanced Games. With the stated prize of $1 million for breaking a world record, sports like swimming that don't get much viewership outside the Olympic Games and don't bring in much revenue outside of World Championships could have a new alternative for competition and making money. In fact, earlier this fall at the World Aquatic Swimming World Cups, the prize money for breaking a world record was $10,000, 1/100th of the prize offered by the Enhanced Games for breaking a similar world record. With that in mind, I see a unique opportunity where swimmers who are 9th through 16th place at the Olympics and don't see a viable possibility for themselves to medal in the next 4 years to take a stab at the Enhanced Games, taking away market share from an already declining Olympic Games. But first, they need to bring athletes to the table, and that's where James Magnussen comes in. In preparation for this video, I did reach out to James Magnussen a multitude of times, trying to get him on the Athletes Only podcast so I could hear about his training, hear how things are going, and hear about when's he going to be competing in the Enhanced Games. But I was unsuccessful and have not heard back from him. However, he's spoken on other podcasts, but if you guys wanted to join the Athletes Only podcast, make sure to comment down below so he sees this video and we can have James come share his thoughts about his training for the Enhanced Games. So instead of hearing from James himself, I got the next best option. James's #1 competitor from his Olympic swimming days, US swimmer Nathan Adrian. At the 2012 Olympic Games, Nathan Adrian outtouched James Magnussen by 1/100th of a second to grab the gold medal in the 100-meter freestyle. Throughout their careers, they continued to battle each other, and I was eager to get a fellow Olympian's thoughts on the Enhanced Games. So without further ado, here's Nathan Adrian.
Curious to get what your thoughts are on the Enhanced Games as a regular Olympian. What do you have to say about that, Nathan?
I'm interested to watch the show, man. I haven't followed it too closely. I think, is it happening in 2025? Is that right?
Yeah, 25 or 26. I saw they went on Rogan recently, and that's why I was like, what? This is actually happening? Like, I thought it was kind of a PR stunt for a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I really haven't been able to engage in it in any meaningful way. But yeah, hey, listen, Enhanced Games, call me up. I'm ready. I could use some red light therapy. I already do saunas and ice baths and things. James is probably getting a little more serious with the growth hormone and testosterone and stuff. I'm not sure if I necessarily want to go that route.
It sounds like Aron and the Enhanced Games need to give Nathan Adrian a call if he's looking to create some more competition for James Magnussen as he goes trying to break this 50 freestyle world record. But in all seriousness, there are many skeptics who call for the banning of the Enhanced Games due to the nature of these high-level athletes taking performance-enhancing drugs and the health concerns that come along with that. While on the other hand, you have athletes who have been pushed out by the IOC, whether they have sanctions against their country, previous doping bannings, who are all in favor of the Enhanced Games happening, a new avenue and a new possibility for them to continue to compete. So to best hear out both sides, I wanted to break down the pros and cons of the Enhanced Games, starting with the pros. First, creating a level playing field. On one hand, you have athletes saying that the Olympic Games has already become the Enhanced Games, with many doping scandals coming out 5 to 10 years after they win those Olympic medals and no reparations being possible. This now allows for a level playing field across the sport that we don't see with the Olympic Games. Second, inclusivity for transgender athletes. With so much backlash coming from the Leah Thomas incident in 2022 and the boxer who is allowed to compete at the 2024 Paris Olympics, this would now allow a space for transgender athletes to compete without scrutiny. If you aren't going to give these athletes an opportunity to compete in the male or female category, then you have to give them an alternative space of competition to compete, and the Enhanced Games might be the perfect spot for them. And third, rethinking the Olympic Games model. As mentioned before, hosting an Olympic Games is a massive economic burden to the host country, with an average price tag of $12 billion, with the 2016 Rio Olympic Games costing north of $23 billion itself. On the other hand, the Enhanced Games will use existing structures and will not become a burden to the host city, thus funneling all that saved money and revenue back to the athletes. Which brings us to the cons. First, ethical concerns and safety. As the first public athlete for the Enhanced Games, James Magnussen has done a great job showing the world on his Instagram everything behind the scenes, from training to doctor's appointments to performance-enhancing drugs that he's taking. However, many fear that this new wave of taking performance-enhancing drugs will cause a long-term effect for many athletes and encourage younger athletes to start partaking in these kind of events, thus wasting their future clean career that they could have. Second, the perception of cheating. While some feel that the Enhanced Games offers an outlet for athletes to push the physical boundaries of the human bodies, many people and many athletes see this as the Cheaters Olympics, tainting the reputation of the Games before it even begins. None of these world records will ever be ratified by any sports federation, so many fans feel like, so what? Why are we watching? Third, the lack of notable athletes. Despite Olympic medalists like James stepping up to the plate, we have yet to hear about any other notable athletes that have signed up for the Enhanced Games and are beginning training. Many fans tune in to watch the Olympic Games so they can cheer on their favorite athletes as they go for gold, but if your favorite athlete isn't competing in the Enhanced Games, then it's not going to even draw a fraction of the viewership the Olympics already barely gets. There's plenty that I could add to both sides of this list, but the most notable factor that I think stands out is the health factor and the potential long-term risks on our human bodies. It's going to be the biggest hurdle that athletes need to consider when deciding, is this for me? Or is this for someone who's going to push their body to limits that I'm not comfortable with? So what are your thoughts? Are the Enhanced Games a viable alternative to the Olympic Games? Should athletes be training for these games despite the health risks associated? Comment down below what your thoughts are and let me know what time you think James Magnussen is going to go in the first ever inaugural Enhanced Games in his 50 freestyle. Is he going to break that world record? Who knows? Who knows? Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any swimming breakdowns in the future, and so you can make sure to get notified when my full episode of the Athletes Only podcast with Nathan Adrian comes out very soon. So with that said, that's going to do it for this video. I'll see you all next time.